Right, welcome to Priory, Paddock. We're now well past the summer solstice and the paddock is reaching the climax of its vegetative year. The tree blossoms have now gone over and set, so just inside the gate, for example, we can see on the hawthorn bush lots and lots of smallish as yet and still green haws. And coming a bit further on, the alder, there's a large alder tree by the boardwalk, and the alder tree has still got some flowers on, but again, very largely those flowers have set, and there are sprays of small green berries to be seen in their place. Coming further on up the paddock, along the drive, on the right I can see a clump of yellow rattle plants. These are semi-parasitic. They get part of their nutriment from the grasses amongst which they grow, and these have produced wonderful brown, I'm not quite sure how to describe them. They look like miniature coconuts, the seed pods of the yellow rattle, but when those seed pods are dry and before the seeds are spread, the seeds inside the dry pods rattle in the wind, hence the name yellow rattle. And on the left, very close to the yellow rattle, I can see a clump of meadow cranesbill, and here again many of the flowers have set and the unripe seed heads can be seen in great profusion, and they are the stems look like many-headed herons at the moment, hence the very clear to see why the plant is called a cranesbill. In the area between the drive and the boardwalk, the grasses are now something like 4 feet tall, and the seeds are setting on the grasses as well. These tussock grasses, there's various sorts here. Foot is the most obvious one. These are provide the food plant for the caterpillars of our brown butterflies, and there was a speckled wood, a lovely freshly hatched speckled wood here in the paddock the other day. And behind and through in between the grasses, to go towards the back of this patch of ground here, I can see some tall spires of purple flowers with pale green, rather furry leaves, and this is hedge woundwort. And the flowers of the woundwort, like many of the other flowers that are about to come into flower here in the paddock, are very popular with bees and butterflies and other insects. Coming further up the paddock, along the drive, on the right I can see oxeye daisies. The oxeye daisies are quite distinctive, and you're not going to mistake them for anything else. They are very obviously daisies, and they are anything up to 3 and 4 feet tall. So they're very, very dramatic daisies. There's a nice good show of them here this year, and amongst those, I can also see the heads now. They're flowering now. Earlier they were just in bud, but they're flowering. This is knapweed, and these look like thistles, but then they have roughish stems, and pointed, but there's no prickles on them. And again, these are things that are very popular with butterflies and bees. There are 3 Guelder rose bushes here, one on the left and 2 on the right of the drive, and again the flowers have all gone. The flowers have all gone over. The fruit is set, and there actually I can see the berries here. There are nice heads of quite a lot of berries, and they are just beginning to ripen up a little bit. They're pale green with. At this time of year, the paddock is effectively taken over by the tall summer flowers. They spend 3 or 4 months reaching the appropriate height, which is anything from 4 to 5 feet, and then they flower and they dominate the entire site. So here, in the area beside the pond, immediately in front of the pond, I can see there's a stand of purple loosestrife, which is just beginning to bud up a little bit. The stems are squarish and have a reddish tinge to them, and the flowers are anything up to 6 or 7 feet tall. Under the hawthorn, the tree by the pond, which doesn't seem to have done so well with its haws as the one by the gate. It's got some berries on it, but a lot of them look shriveled. I think they must have flowered in the middle of that heat wave, and so the berries have shriveled up a bit. But under the shelter of the hawthorn, there is some Russian comfrey, which is very tall, very hairy, and has typical comfrey flowers like little bells, and they're a sort of pinkish lilac colour. And next to that, and again, it's just beginning to flower. I can just see the first 2 flowers on it at the minute. There is a spear thistle, and that too is about 5 feet tall, and it has these wonderful, extremely spiky, very, very aggressive and unwelcoming leaves on it, with the end of the leaf is split into 5 points, each of which has a thorn on the end. Behind the Russian comfrey, along the side of on the upper side of the pond, there's a stand of meadowsweet, and that is now in flower. There's they look like clouds of creamy white blossom draped around the stems of the meadowsweet. The teasels have grown very well. I can see one that must be nearly 8 feet tall, but as yet the flower heads haven't opened. The buds are developing nicely, but I can't see any flower heads open yet. And coming on to the upper part of the paddock, I can see still some red campion. I can see some more purple loosestrife, which is flowering here as well, and more meadowsweet. But the main area is a solid mass of codlins and cream, which is the great willow herb, and those are, well, in fact, I would think that some of them are at least 8 feet tall, and whilst they look as though they're just beginning to acquire buds, there is certainly none of anything in flower yet. Just before you leave the paddock, though, I think it'd be worth your while taking a detour along the boardwalk, and in the centre of the boardwalk, if you look to your right as you're coming from the top end of the paddock, looking towards a little bit of pond on each side of the boardwalk, you will see our Gunnera manicata, our Brazilian giant rhubarb, which is flourishing very well indeed this year. Well, that seems to conclude what's to be seen at this time of the year. So I hope you've enjoyed the visit.